Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you've ever found yourself spiraling into endless thoughts, worrying about things you can't control, or replaying conversations in your head, then this video is for you. Today, I'll be breaking down 10 proven strategies to stop overthinking and help you regain control over your mind. We're going to dive deep into understanding why we overthink and, more importantly, how to overcome it. Let's get started. So, let's start with the basics. What exactly is overthinking? Overthinking is when we think about a situation or problem so much that we become stuck. It's replaying past mistakes or worrying about future outcomes that may or may not happen. Overthinking can lead to stress, anxiety, and feeling overwhelmed. We often overthink because we want to feel in control or because we're afraid of making a mistake. It can also stem from our desire to avoid uncertainty. But here's the thing. Overthinking usually causes more harm than good. The first step to stopping overthinking is recognizing when you're doing it. You can't solve a problem if you're not aware it exists, right? Pay attention to the signs. Do you constantly replay conversations or events in your head? Do you spend more time worrying about the future than taking action? Let's say you had a conversation with a friend, and afterward you keep replaying it, wondering if you said something wrong. This is classic overthinking. The moment you catch yourself doing this, make a mental note. I'm overthinking right now. Awareness is the first step toward breaking the cycle. Next, it's time to reframe your thoughts. When we overthink, we tend to focus on the negative. We assume the worst-case scenario, or we worry about things that are out of our control. Imagine you're applying for a new job and you're overthinking the interview. You might think, what if I mess up? What if they don't like me? Instead of spiraling, try reframing your thoughts to something like, I've prepared for this, I'll do my best, and whatever happens, I'll learn from it. Reframing your thoughts allows you to shift from a place of fear to a place of empowerment. This next tip might sound strange, but it's super effective. Set a time limit for your overthinking. Give yourself a specific amount of time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, to think about the situation. Let your mind go through all the what-ifs and concerns. But once that time is up, stop. Move on. This technique helps you control your thoughts rather than letting them control you. By limiting how much time you spend worrying, you prevent yourself from spiraling into a never-ending loop of overthinking. One of the best ways to calm an overactive mind is through mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness is the practice of being present in the moment. Instead of letting your thoughts run wild, you focus on what's happening right now. You can start by simply focusing on your breathing. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Pay attention to how it feels, the rise and fall of your chest, the sensation of air moving in and out. This brings your mind back to the present and helps stop the flow of overthinking. There are also plenty of apps that guide you through mindfulness exercises such as Headspace or Calm. Even just 5 minutes of meditation can make a big difference in quieting your thoughts. Overthinking often happens when we feel overwhelmed by a problem. The solution? Break it down into small, manageable steps. Instead of thinking about everything at once, focus on the first step you need to take. Let's say you're overwhelmed by a big project at work. Instead of overthinking every detail of how you'll finish it, ask yourself, what's the very first thing I need to do? By focusing on small, actionable steps, you'll start making progress, which will reduce your overthinking. A lot of overthinking happens because we're not taking action. We get stuck in our heads, thinking about all the possibilities, but we don't actually do anything. The antidote? Take action. Even if it's a small step, doing something, anything, can help break the cycle of overthinking. If you're overthinking about a conversation you need to have, just go ahead and have it. If you're worrying about a project, start working on it. Action is the best cure for overthinking. Perfectionism is one of the biggest drivers of overthinking. We want everything to be just right, so we spend hours obsessing over details. But here's the thing, perfection doesn't exist. Trying to achieve it only leads to stress and frustration. Instead, focus on doing your best, not being perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for things to not go exactly as planned. Letting go of perfectionism will free you from the constant cycle of overthinking. Another powerful tool to stop overthinking is to challenge your thoughts. Often, when we overthink, we're assuming the worst. But how often does the worst case scenario actually happen? Not very often, right? Let's say you're overthinking an upcoming presentation. You might think, what if I mess up? What if they hate it? Now challenge that thought. Ask yourself, is this really likely? And even if I do mess up, what's the worst that could happen? You'll find that many of your fears are overblown. Sometimes, the best way to stop overthinking is to distract yourself with a healthy activity. Whether it's going for a walk, exercising, or working on a hobby, doing something that requires focus can help shift your mind away from overthinking. If you're stuck in a loop of negative thoughts, try going for a run, listening to music, or even cooking a new recipe. Physical movement, in particular, is great for clearing the mind and reducing stress. Lastly, remember to practice self-compassion. Overthinking often comes from being too hard on ourselves. We criticize ourselves for past mistakes or worry about not being good enough. Instead of being your own worst critic, try being your own best friend. Talk to yourself kindly and acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes. You're doing the best you can, and that's enough to stop overthinking and find peace of mind. Remember, it's a process, and you won't stop overthinking overnight. But with practice, you can train your mind to focus on the present and let go of those endless worries.